Sunday, Super Soul Sunday. I am so thankful. Another beautiful day coming your way with the one and only Phil Moore
Oh,
in Los Angeles. Welcome to Nana Chicha Live.
Super Soul Sunday. It feels like there should be a lightning bolt and like a superhero pose that's done. Welcome to Super Soul Sunday.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you.
That's
So tell
great.
the world who Phil is.
I am a former Nickelodeon TV host. Back in the 90s, I did about 10 years doing a variety of different shows, one called Nick Arcade, one called You're On, and several live appearances and touring arena shows. And now I work as a television game show producer. And it's funny because, the circle has brought me back to doing some stuff for Nickelodeon. I've done game shows for Viacom and Universal Kids, and right now, I'm doing a show for Twitch and Amazon Prime,
Oh,
producing
wow.
from home. It's kind of neat
Are
how it
you
works.
so are you still on lockdown in LA?
Well, they're still practicing, COVID measures out here. Yes, and it depends on what county that you're in. Because I have friends that live in California who have a little more liberty to do certain things. It depends on where you are. So the studios are now starting to, like all jobs, are starting to come up with protocols that meet the guidelines, and so they're slowly starting to kind of, you know, open back up a little bit. But on this particular project, we're still doing it from home.
Okay, fantastic. Welcome and thank you so much. I mean, I did put out there that Los Angeles is my third home.
Yeah.
I have so many homes. Yay.
we look for you when you're out here. We drive down the street. You look. Where's Nana? She's not here. Oh,
I'm
okay.
not here
Maybe
because
next
I'm
month.
locked
Maybe
down.
next month.
So I'm
We're
still
checking our
here in
watch.
the UK. I'm still here in the UK. I'm waiting. Now we're on lockdown again in the
Yeah.
UK.
Uh-huh.
So is out this well, the second wave is here. So we
Mhm.
know people are asked to stay at home and do practice all this. So we're not traveling, we're not going anywhere till I think 5th of December, 5th of second or 5th of December. Then they will announce again
Mhm.
the measures, and we see whether we can travel, or we wait till
Right.
the new year. But we're thankful that we're alive and we're
Yes.
healthy, and
Yes.
so we're not going to complain. We bless the Lord for that. But
That's
I can see that lockdown or you working from home is really giving your hair the afro.
and it's funny because I normally have a tendency to style it a little better. I mean, I had an afro when I was a kid in the '70s, but it's Sunday, and I know that was coming on with you. But like I said, I was coming in from doing something outside, so I figured, do I work on my hair or do I make it so that I don't stink? So I took a shower so I wouldn't stink. But they opened
Okay,
up.
so
They
let's get
opened up.
Quasi.
Okay.
Quasi is also in, so let's get Quasi, who is also. Hello, Quasi.
Hey, how are you?
Hey,
Good.
Quincy, how you doing?
How are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Okay,
Likewise. Is it Phil? Phil
It's
Moore?
Phil. Yeah.
Nice. Good to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Where are you?
yes. Phil is
Sam?
in.
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, okay. I'm in the Bay Area.
All right. Oh, okay. So yeah. So see, as we were just talking about how, depending on where you live in California, things have opened up a little bit more for some regions and less for others.
How is it like in your area?
It's starting to open up pretty good. She was just getting on my crazy fro that I've grown since the pandemic. I actually got it trimmed. I let it grow really big, and then I got it trimmed down. Only because I kind of dug it. I took out my high school yearbook picture, and I'm like, I remember that guy. But like things like barbershops opened up. Gyms haven't opened up. And I was telling her, I work in the television field, and the studios are now adopting approved protocols, for being able to do some sort of limited sort of productions again. I've been working from home since COVID started, and I have had a Q-tip shoved up my nose every week.
Wow. But
For the test,
yourself to the well.
Test yet. I haven't had a test yet, but I've been from home since March.
Okay.
So
Oh,
Well,
it's
well,
been,
there was a couple of times, well, not more than a couple of times when I was needed to actually come into the actual control room. They have limited people, only 6 people allowed in at a time. Everybody was spaced up. They put plastic barriers behind us. But because I may be asked to pop in for a particular episode and actually come into the studio and being part of the control room, we just get mandatory check every week.
okay. Let's Kwesi, introduce yourself to our wonderful viewers.
so my name is Kwesi Wilson. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I teach communication studies. I like to say I'm a politics junkie. So I'm always, I mean, election season is like my favorite season. It's like the World Cup.
Well, I
You
see.
study all the permutations, you study what's going on, then you're into, before going into teaching, I worked in PR, political politics PR, so political PR, like issue based communication. And so you do statewide campaigns and you try to work on the messaging, and then you go back to see if the people ate up what you're trying to get across. And so looking at how campaigns are run is a very exciting thing for me to
Okay.
witness it.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, today we're gonna. Well, you know that I'm a talk show host. I'm not a political analyst or, like Kwesi. But today, what we're going to talk about is what we've all seen and witnessed from yesterday, from Monday to prior to last night, and we woke up this morning and we see all these videos going around. I mean, some are hilarious. I think I even tag you in some, and some are also they are unbelievable videos. But in all, people were just jubilating. So, in your area, Phil, what is the atmosphere like?
The atmosphere is a sense of a relief. Years ago, there was a movie called Waiting to Exhale, and that's kind of like it was. Everybody got to exhale. They got to breathe a sigh of relief in the area that I am. But I also like to point out too the thing that I kind of look at in fairness and really putting a real perspective on stuff. This was a very, very close race. So I'm talking about only half of the country. Half of the country is breathing a sigh of relief. There's another half of the country that's like, angry. They're hurt. They're upset. But in the area in which I live, there definitely was the celebrations, the jubilation, and I think it's sort of, serendipitous that the feeling is I can breathe now, and we all saw what happened as a result of the I can't breathe with George Floyd.
Okay, Kwesi, what about your area?
What we're happy. This is the Bay Area and it's very liberal, and we're happy with the outcome of the elections. Where people went out en masse, just hit the streets to celebrate. I didn't go out there, but a lot of people did go out there. And the last time I felt like that, the last time something like that happened was when Obama won. So the first time Obama won, people just went out and stormed the streets and sideshows, all sorts of things, jubilating. And we saw the same thing happen. Now, I don't think it was for Biden. I think it was for the exit of the happy Trump is leaving. This has been sitting on their necks for quite some time. And just getting that elephant off the neck just brought about some relief to a lot of people. And a sort of a renewed sense of, where we're going. And we've been fighting for a lot of causes. And all those causes were just sort of appended when he came into office. And so now we're looking at the ways we can go forward. But like he said, there are other parts of the country that are, let me just say this way, they're feeling what I felt 4 years ago.
Yep, that's it exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So we have 2 new occupants on their way to the White House, and there's going to be the first woman vice president, the first Black American vice president, the first Indian American vice president. Phil, how do you feel about that?
Nothing. It's just joy. Anytime that a barrier can be broken down or overcome, it brings such a joy, to me. Again, going back to what he just said, I haven't felt like this since the Obama winning the first time. It was historic. It was a hurdle, and here's the thing: I'm blessed to have. My mom is still alive. She's in her 80s, and so when you talk to talk to my mom, I talk to my aunts, and they all were there when the civil rights movement was going on.
Okay.
They all were there. I mean, I was one of those kids where when election day rolled around, sometimes we would have like the day off from school, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I get to stay home." And mom's like, "Nah, boy, you're getting out there. You're going to hand out flyers." They pound the pavement. They work to get people elected, to get Hispanic people elected, to get minorities, to bring diversity and true representation of the American people into these offices and into these positions. So I am ecstatic. I am overwhelmed. I could not be happier with our new Madam Vice President. That's gonna sound good to say.
What about you?
I saw this coming from afar. I Kamala is from Oakland, so right down the street from me.
Right down the street, yep.
And I knew of her when she was the district attorney in San Francisco. And it's interesting how they tried to paint her. I was having a back and forth with a lot of people because she had the first DA in San Francisco to have restorative justice programs that were in place, where if you're a first-time offender, they put you through corrective measures instead of sending you to prison. And in some cases, they helped other people build their credit back up and then get them back on track to be able to rent a place and all that stuff. You had a situation where there was a high truancy in San Francisco, some parts of San Francisco, where kids were not going to school for like 80 days, mainly minority kids. And so she put in place, and this is what became what they tried to paint her with, right? Um, she put in place a policy where if she wanted parents to get involved with making sure that kids go to school. So if your kid doesn't go to school and is playing hooky for about 80 days straight, you get to go to jail as well for not doing that. Nobody went to jail. All the kids went back to school. Not even a single person went to jail. Then she ran for state attorney general. There was a time when she became the state attorney general, all the housing crisis that happened, and all of them were going under. And then the finance industry, the banking industry came with some piecemeal to sort of appease them. And she walked away from the table. And then the rest of the country walked away from the table as a result of that. And then she went back to renegotiate a better deal for all the homeowners so that they were able to get money because all of them had homes that were underwater. So I know her background. I went to a campaign launch in Oakland. And I told people this woman is going to be the next president of the United States. I said it a couple of years ago. And then when she decided to run, I was there at her campaign launch in Oakland. And people underestimated. I was like, nope, I will not underestimate Kamala. And so she was the first DA, she was the first AG, she was the first Black senator. And now a lot of young women, young Black, Indian, whatever you are, can aspire. We've had the first Black man. And you think back not too long ago where women were. And if you look at history in this country, they couldn't even vote. So to have a woman in the highest office, the second highest office in the world, with real chance to be the president of the United States. And I think Biden set her up really, really well. As Jamaicans call it set good, when you put your face inside, him set you good, Biden really set her up good because Biden is going to be a one-term president. He doesn't plan to, run again. So that will give Kamala the chance to be able to run as the most qualified Democrat to run in 2024.
Wow. Congratulations to her. But let's talking about Biden. He's 77 years old. He's been politics for a very, very, very long time. And yesterday when they kept playing his, when he was young and all that he went through, and with his late wife, his son, and not giving up to this day, what do you think he carries that made him go to where he is, Phil?
I it's the measure of a man. I don't know what it is that causes each of us, men, women, whoever, to continue to persevere. Um, uh, but something else that happened that I'm attaching to how this question that you asked about Joe Biden, and that is, I have to be real honest. I had my faith renewed in the American people. For those of us who found ourselves with that knee on their neck, and realizing that the race was as close as it was, there was no uh, liberty we took in just assuming that Joe Biden was going to win. So there were sleepless nights. There were biting of the fingernails. There was wringing of the hands. And when this happened yesterday, I wasn't out there celebrating. I was somber in my peace of what had occurred. And I love America. Every man in my family, every black man in my family, uncles, cousins, I don't have any brothers. Every single one have served in the military. I love the military, the service that they do, and in order to continue to go back out there, sometimes it takes something to show you that all things are possible. And so, whatever it is that's inside of Joe Biden to make him continue to persevere, I commend it. And yesterday's victory renewed and rekindled for a lot of people like myself the belief that indeed all things are possible.
Wow. The belief. Kwesi, what do you have to say on that?
I agree with everything he said, and I'll just add that there's this thing where you have your better angels and you have your worst impulses, and we have had the worst impulses be those buttons be pushed for 4 years, bringing out all the worst within our society. Somebody described the world when he said Obama's election was like pushing the boulder away and letting all the maggots underneath it come out for sunshine. And the maggots came. The maggots were playing. And at some point, even the good people started becoming apathetic and jaded and cynical to a point where we felt we couldn't even, we felt inert. And so you have somebody as Biden who, all his career, you talk about wanting a good person. When there was a fight for apartheid, there was no stronger advocate for apartheid to get rid of apartheid government in South Africa than Joe Biden in the Senate when Reagan was in office. And very passionate about the issue. Um, you talk about violence against women and many other things. Joe Biden has been there. And so looking at Obamacare, Joe Biden was the main architect, looking at bringing us back from the economic brink, crash down, meltdown in Wall Street, and the finance reform and all that stuff. Joe Biden was the person who was in the Senate negotiating and helping them craft the bill, right? And so there was a reason Obama picked him because of his foreign policy knowledge and sausage making. When I say sausage making, passing laws and getting the laws crafted. And so he's really very adept at that. And so at the time when we've had our institutions torn apart, broken apart, we've had military members having targets on the back of their heads for, by Russia, and then nobody is doing anything about it. So it's we should thank ourselves that we have a man like that in the office now, that is. I feel grateful because now I keep saying now we're going to have a really real solid approach towards the coronavirus because we've never really had a federal plan to address it. I feel like we can get back to testing, we can get back to having our lives back. And so I'm really very optimistic about the outcome of this election.
You know, yesterday when people were bleating, I had a text from Phil. It says there has not been more voting, even the first time President Obama was elected. I mean, people didn't vote as of yesterday. I
Right.
mean, he had so much vote. And in Georgia, Stacey Abrams did give, they said what? She organized 800,000. How did she do that? Even though she didn't win, she really, really went out. And I mean, people really push for others to vote.
Black
Right.
woman magic. That's how she did it.
Because I was like, so all these people have been around for a long time. So it meant people really want to change.
Yeah, it's interesting. If I could jump in here,
Yeah.
it, it's it's yes, you're right. As I said in my text, yeah, more people voted in this election than any election, including the election of President Obama. But also on the flip side of that, this is something where this is why I had this peace, but yet I was very focused yesterday, as opposed to running out, whistling what to do, because a million more people voted for President Trump than voted the first time. That means that despite the 4 years that the three of us have witnessed, a million more people saw a different
And then those
country. They saw a different country.
Yeah.
And those people are here right now. They're still here. They didn't disappear. They didn't go away. And so I've been just I'm really just focusing my thoughts and my energy and my prayer in these immediate moments on the work that we still have to do ahead. The work ahead. I was telling you also, there was a thing where somebody commented to me on my social media about a man that I respect, the white gentleman, a man that I respect. I've known him for 30 years. His son and his son and my son grew up together. We now have 30-year-old men that grew up playing together as kids. And he said to me, why does race have anything to do with it? I'm not going to give up my liberty and my freedom, and that doesn't make me a racist. And my response was, well, then you should know how I feel, because for me and others who think like me, you want to keep your liberty and your freedom. I want mine back, because the last 4 years have chipped away. I feel like in order to get back to a place of continuing forward, I got to go back a little bit to bring us up to where we were before the last 4 years started. And then we can move forward. We want the same thing, and it's about understanding. And maybe sometimes, I don't think sometimes people are innately diabolical. I think sometimes they just don't know. And I'm hoping we use this time to communicate, to get people to understand certain things. You might not understand something about me. He was surprised to find out the level of racism that my son and I have been confronted with. Even though we've known each other for 30 years, we live on two different coasts. So he hasn't seen my son and I in the last 15 years. But he was surprised to hear these stories from me. He's like, "Oh, Phil, you're like the American dream guy." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the American dream guy." He gets pulled over for no reason because I have a high profile car. I have a really cool car. I'm trying to live the American dream. I pay my taxes, and I work my job, and I'm blessed with a decent living. So I want to buy nice things. But having a nice thing being black means I might be harassed for no apparent reason in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when I explained that story to him, now I put it in the hands of people. I don't fault a man or a woman for not knowing, but once you know, you're now accountable for the knowledge that you now know.
Right.
Well, Quincy, you are an African descent. I mean, you grew up in the States, but you had a little childhood something in Ghana, and you moved to the States. But you being there, Phil talking about the American dream. I know you're living the American dream. You're very highly educated and a professor. What are some of the expectations that people have of you in spite of you leaving Ghana to be in the States?
Expectations from
From your career and where you are now.
yeah. Well, let's put it this way. There's stuff that Phil said that I wanted to touch on, but I'll answer this
Yeah,
question.
okay, you can touch on and then answer my question.
So I'll answer your question and I'll go. I'll
Okay.
go back to what Phil said.
Mm.
So expectations, it depends on who you're talking about. If you're talking about people from Ghana, the expectations is different because they feel like I'm living up here. If you're white, um, and you see me walking down the street dressed like this, I look like a suspect. I shouldn't be in this side of town or that side of town. I've been um, harassed by cops. Like Phil, I like my BMWs. I'm a BMW guy. Wherever I'm at, in certain neighborhoods, you get pulled over. You don't look like you're supposed to own that car. That's really what they're saying.
Mhm.
And you could be, you might have acquired it through dubious means. So they're pulling over for whatever reason, like your license plates, whatever, you didn't signal, whatever. The least thing they can. Sometimes even with no reason, I've been pulled over because they said I look like someone they're looking for. Just look like, and that's at whoever's discretion. I look like someone they're looking for. So the expectations, if you're in a classroom setting, that's fine. People know what your role there is, right? But even in that instance, there's this thing called microaggression, where I'm teaching in front of a class, a fellow faculty member whom I've sat next to, this white lady. I sat next to her at meetings, faculty meetings, faculty senate meetings. We've exchanged words before, but she came to my class thinking that I was the facilities guy or the janitor and asking me to go open a classroom door for her while I was teaching. And I said, I was not. So you're not, could you just go do it for me? And I wouldn't go to anyone else's classroom to ask that person to go open my classroom door for me. I'll go to the facilities office to find out whoever has the key. But she saw a black person in front of a class teaching my class. And the next time she saw me, she said, I thought you were the facilities guy. And so expectations, there's an expectation of what a black person is supposed to have and supposed to be. Even certain neighborhoods, you know. Um, and then they tell all of us, work hard, do this right. Like Phil was saying, you do everything to get your piece of the American pie. Pay your taxes, do this, all that stuff. And then someone sees you and profiles you and assumes that you don't deserve all of that.
Correct. That's correct.
Oh, to go back to what Phil was saying, the election of Trump, right, gave all these maggots, I call them maggots, that came out for sunlight. It gave them a political party.
Crazy.
They've been around.
Mhm.
They were around when they've been around. They were around when Sarah Palin and John McCain were running, and they tried to come out in the Republican Party open. John McCain shut them down, right? Sarah Palin was showing up at Sarah Palin's rallies. They were chanting Obama was Kenyan, and he's not one of us. They were sending emails around. They've been around. They've always have been trying to rise, but they couldn't rise. When Obama was elected, they came out as a Tea Party, right? And they said they were against big government, but they were not against big government. We got to really have evidence of that because Trump actually ran a big government and nobody complained about that. Run up the deficits, which they said they were against, and nobody complained about that. But you don't have you have these things that are sitting inside you. You're racist, you hate other people, but you don't have the space to share it because of political correctness. Then here comes a candidate that is singing your tune, right? It's saying everything that you believe in, and then they tag along with them and then go the way with it. The first time
Yep.
around,
Mhm.
and the first time around when they joined, it wasn't convenient to join, to come out. Now, there may have been people who were on the fence. I've seen a lot of my friends stick to Trump's side who voted for Trump this time around, right? They 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 felt like they're good people, they're your neighbors, your friends, you went to school with them, you talk to them all the time. But now that it's become popular to be for Trump, those who were on the fence tipped over and joined in there. I was happy that those of us on this side with a conscience who have been watching kids be locked up, who've been watching people on the streets complaining that we should be treated as human beings as well. Well, our lives matter, right? And you find people of all racial backgrounds standing up to uh, that call. I was happy that a lot more people turned out to vote. And I think what really facilitated that possibility is the mere fact that people had absentee ballots. And I think we should keep the absentee ballots, the mail-in ballots as a thing. But I think when more Americans have that, they will vote. It's just the thought of going somewhere to stand in line and all that stuff really can be a bit discouraging. And so if there's a silver lining to this coronavirus, that could be it.
So do you
one quick point. Without the coronavirus, I don't think Biden would have won.
Right. It's funny. They mentioned that yesterday on Saturday Night Live. Dave Chappelle mentioned that, and he said, "So if there is," he said almost exactly what he said. So if there's one good thing, one, because he talked about the thousands of lives that have been lost to the virus. He said, "But if I could see one good thing about coronavirus, it got Biden elected." I was like, "Wow."
Because
you know,
we think that really changed people's lives. It's all about, is your life better? Are you better off now than you were back then? And if coronavirus hadn't come, people might have just said that yes, economy is doing great. Forget all the stuff that he says. We're doing fine. The coronavirus. Now you walk around with a mask on your face. You can go. Your kids can go to school. All that stuff is happening. So people have real ways that they felt that the effects of it. Even if you haven't had the virus, you've been affected by it in some way or some form.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I piggyback on something that you said too? Because it's something that it was so good. And that is, there seems to be like a get out of jail free card for people to come out of the closet of racism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and I said this to a lot of people. For me, it's like, again, going back to talking about the military. If you're about to make a move and you get the command to say stand down, that's an entirely different action than being told from the commander in chief to stand by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who I call people who were afraid of their job, losing their job, afraid of retribution. But when they began to see they could slowly come out of their racist closet and get no retribution, there was no fear of retribution because the commander in chief of the most powerful country in the world was saying, I'll back you on this. Then it became going crazy. These 4 years have gone backwards. It's absolutely gone backward. And there was something that I pointed out that I saw that it was like, again, I love America. I love this country. But it's interesting how this pervasive mindset had trickled in, and that is the idea of, it's like racism became so much a part of America that to protest racism was interpreted as protesting America. If you're out there protesting racism, somehow you have been looked upon as not American. That's a horrible thing that allowed to creep in over the last 4 years.
So do you think Biden, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala were saying that they're going to heal the country? Do you think it's possible to heal?
I think it is. I do think it is possible to heal. I mean, in everything in life, it's possible to heal. I really do. For some people, it's just a matter of having a good conscience, having some character, having some decency. For others, it may be the invoking of those penalties. If you're not going to harass me, if you're not going to threaten my life, if you're not going to be a Karen, as we call it here in America, because you fear retribution, I'll take that. Whatever it takes to stop the injustice. Because again, like my friend that I was telling you about, my white friend,
Mm.
I want liberty and I want justice too. Justice for all, not justice for some, and not justice for some of the time.
Mm. Chrissy, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I concur with pretty much everything you said. You have Biden and Kamala definitely. Um, Healing is possible. There are people who, no matter what you do, you could toss them up and bounce them on the ground, and they're not going to be persuaded by Biden and Kamala, right? And so there are people who are not. So the persuadables can be persuaded. We have a return to some sort of normalcy um, with them in office. I'm looking at the laws in which they can actually pass, like criminal justice reform and many of these other issues, and looking at Mitch McConnell being the person at the gates still, and thinking we need those two senators from Georgia. Healing in terms of executive orders are good, but executive orders can be flipped easily by the next person that comes in, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Pence is looking at 2024, Paul Ryan is looking at 2024. They could come back and then flip that. But so getting the Senate to really pass criminal justice reform, because in terms of healing for especially African Americans, the work is steep. There's microaggression, there's many other things on the table this time around. Criminal justice reform, economic reform, environmental reform. The black neighborhoods are uh, rife with chemical toxins that's being dumped in those neighborhoods and stuff. There's a lot. Education reform, there's a lot on the table for them in terms of healing. So you think about healing and just offering lip service is not going to be enough. Real policy is going to be what, you know, will bring the change. Now, psychologically, there's some people who will not follow the policy. We had Civil Rights Act that passed in 1964, or yes, 64, and psychologically, several people still obviously didn't, change their minds about that. But making things better for people with policy, and then the whole enforcement of the policies and stuff, at least for many of us who are at the brunt of the system, can have some sort of reprieve from being harassed, from being pulled over for, from being killed at whim, And so many of these things, you talk about healing, it's not just appeasing that side who's ready to go to war with us. It's more so the aggrieved in this country, atoning for this country's sins, atoning for the things that has been uh, kicked down the road over and over and over and over again. All those things must be considered when we talk about healing. So bringing black leaders to the table, getting them to be part of the solution, bringing the youth to the table, getting them to be part of the solution, are all going to be what the healing process will take. And I'm looking forward to that.
Fantastic. That's come to, if we all change. I was thinking. I said, you remember when President Obama ran? He did talk about change. So I think change needs to be involved. People need to really change, and we live in a society now that I don't even know the word. It's, we have social media, so before something even get passed or anything, it's out there already, and so because he just touched that, but this change, it's a big thing. It's a really, really big thing. And there's certain things that I think cannot be changed, the foundations on which America sits, you know and when the boundaries of any nation is people try to twist it or try to change it, it brings a lot of commotion. And so, not just, I think, well, I'm a Christian, so definitely I would say they have to also bring the church leaders in, which I know a lot of the churches did tell their members to vote as well. because the society we live in are trying to do things and leaving God out. And that is why we having most of the commotion. Would you agree with me, gentlemen? Phil.
Well, yes, yes. But I also have to say that there are a lot of people who I know when I used to live on the East Coast, where I stood and held hands with them and lifted them high and prayed and praised, and they go to churches that were pro Trump. There's some churches the church that I attend now, they were pushing pro Biden. Um, and so it's interesting because I can't bear witness on an individual's love of God. That's not me to judge. But even within the church, there were there was this division like I've never seen before. And if nothing else, this is the big thing that I like to tell people. It's like I've never seen this wide, this huge gulf, this chasm, this division as big as this since I don't know, since '77 or something. And again, going back to what I'm saying, talking to my elders, talking to my mother, talking to my aunts, talking to my uncles, who are all now 77 and above. And when you hear someone who dealt with busing, who dealt with segregation, who dealt with being hosed, who marched on DC, who was there and heard Martin Luther King, when you tell them they have not seen it that bad since then, that says a lot. That says a lot. We're not talking about people who are flippant and have weird opinions. We're not talking about people who don't love the Lord and trust God and been on their knees praying. But like I said, there are people that I know that attend churches that I attended on the East Coast in some of these states that swung Donald Trump's way. And I have stood there with them. I have lifted my hands and cried out to the Lord with them. And yet their church said one thing and other churches say another.
Kwesi.
Yeah, you know where I stand on religion, so I'm not gonna get deep into it.
I'll pray for you.
Single issues, voters, right? Single issue, and there's this issue with gay marriage and abortion being most Christians' linchpin for who to vote for or what to be against. And that single issue, in many instances, sort of clouds their vision and makes them dismiss everything else that is in their interest because of that single issue.
I think that is what a lot of when we read comments and stuff on. I think that is some
That
of the things that was really making people, you know,
exactly. I
yeah.
call it the on ramp to Trump land. So there's a freeway for Trump, and it has several lanes. They have the uh, hate Mexican lane, to hate these people lane, to hate abortion lane, all these lanes. And once the religion is one on ramp, so not just religion, but like anti-abortion or anti-gay, right? So then that leads you to that. Soon as you get on that, you get bombarded with all the rest of the stuff, and then next thing you know, you you become one of them. There's this theory I teach in one of my classes called symbolic interactionism, and it says that your sense of self is developed through your interactions with the environment, right? So when you're born, you don't know who you are. It's the people you interact around with that really give you a sense of who you are. And if they tell you you're ugly, you start feeling you're ugly. If they tell you you're smart, you start feeling you're smart. And you interact with your surroundings, and then you become somebody. But when you move to a different location, that location can also change you. So you're not really set in who you are. It's always going to be impacted by the environment and the people you hang around. And so if you're religious and or you become religious and this issue is big for you, or you go into Trump land just based on that single issue and you just interacting with them, you get all the other stuff. and the next thing you know, you've been converted to become one of them. That's how people get radicalized, right? The radical Islamist is not different from the other side. You have the web allowing everyone to be able to publish themselves. You have kids being recruited to become white nationalists, just going on there and just interacting with people. And next thing you know, they change to become that. And so you have a lot of that in play. Now, what I heard today was not good news for me because I heard that there's a likelihood that Trump may start Trump TV if when he gets out of office, right? I almost said if he gets out of office. When he gets out of when he gets out of office, he's not there out. And you can imagine the sort of stuff that they'll be peddling on there. You look at Fox News. You watch Fox News today, you would think that election hasn't been had already. They're still talking about. They're not even using president elect, and so um, I'm just at a loss for words now. But you have this churning out and development of people shifting to become something else, and the on ramp that takes them there is single issue voters. If you really pay very close attention, even in Africa, Nigeria, 59% of Nigerians support Trump. 59%. And most of them said he's good for religion. He's good for the Obama going to Africa, talking about them giving human rights to gay people, really pissed them off. And they associate that with Democrats. Biden, by default, is Democrat. And you have that here. People who are even Christians thinking that Obama is for gay people. And if gay people have rights, then that means that he's, we should vote for the other person because we don't want.
So what you're trying to tell us that we have to educate ourselves before
we have to educate ourselves. We have to expand our minds. We have to have a holistic. You're not going to find a perfect candidate.
Correct.
You're not going to find everything you want in that. You have to look at the breadth of policies that this candidate is going to offer you. People are overlooking the fact that kids are locked up in cages. We forget that as we sit here, we have people in Guantanamo Bay. We don't bring
it still there. I thought they were gone.
One more.
Yeah.
We just don't talk about them, but they're still there. Guantanamo Bay is still there with people still there right now. Well, I think Trump should join them there. But in any
about with racism that's just being advocated and looked the other way and encouraged and cheered upon. It's like choose what is it? What do you choose on? Choose to stand on. And something else. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to get started because I forgot it twice already. and because you brought up the idea of religion, and I always go, people can be bamboozled by whatever it is their buzzword. And I don't just mean in politics. I mean, they think about the teenager who wants to have his way with that girl over there, and so he says "I love you," but he doesn't. But he knows that is the buzzword that's going to make her open up to him. And so, with respect to religion, there's something that I always you have to look at the character and the heart of the person, because the Bible says man looks at the outside, but God looks at the heart. And if you've got somebody who's just saying the buzzwords that make you feel yay, but everything their actions do in every other situation is counter to godly character, then you have to realize you're just being bamboozled, and he just wants to get you in the back seat.
That's called narrative inconsistency.
Wow, gentlemen. So now there's going to be change. There's going to be healing. What do you want to tell all your friends? I know you've had some issues all of us have had, people emailing, texting, saying this, would you support, but at the end of the day, we've seen the result. The voters, the people have spoken. And I think Kwesi said something that, about Trump, that I said, at least he did something. Everybody comes in and fulfill something in their calling, in their office. So apart from the character bit and the you said, there was no attack, there was no remember, and I told you maybe he's a businessman, and so he came with the business models. And businessmen don't just, they're always on the attack, or they're always on the fence of, if you strike, I strike. But in all being said and done, it's a new day, it's a new era. And one thing that we are praying to God for is that that change, that healing will come to the US. And I know that when it happens, then it affects, because you are the superpowers. But hey, Africa is coming, Africa is on the board now. But what would you like to say to all the American people, Phil?
It's real simple. Like I said, I'm not out there jumping up and down and screaming and waving. I'm real somber because I realize that this is just the first step. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. I mean, it might be the end of the Trump era, but it is now the beginning of this new era, and we need to come together. And like I said before, sometimes just have an understanding. I think, there are people, you're never going to sway them. They're never going to see it the other way. But like I said, I do believe that there are a lot of people, they're not diabolical, they're not stupid. They just don't know. My people perish because of lack of knowledge.
No
And if they
idea.
don't know what's going on, if they don't know what your plight is, they don't know what you're experiencing personally, then maybe it's time we open that communication, we begin the healing by sharing. And then once you find out, then you're accountable for that information, and then maybe you'll have an understanding. And that is the beginning of this long journey. I mean, the coin of movie is, we got to get back to our future.
We got to get back to our future. Quissy, what do you have to say to your friends?
Two things I have to say to them. First, understand that change is a relay race, and it's not going to everything's not going to happen with one race. And so, run a good lap, and then hand the baton to the next person. Make sure that you're really having a succession plan in place, so that the next generation can pick up where you left off at. And if you look at African American history, it's always been about each generation fighting for the next frontier, right? You go back to slavery and uh, uh, reconstruction, and then that stopped, and then another phase happened, and civil rights movement happened, and then this, and then we have ours happening right now. And so you find that we're always moving the ball forward. Now, the second thing that I'll tell them is, so the first one means be patient, be steady, understand that that's how the process works. The second thing that I will tell them is to stay engaged. The election is just one step. Election is step one. The electing the president is step one. The step two is getting the president to have the necessary um, cabinet, not cabinet, but legislature to be able to pass the things that you want them, and then advocating and being calling them and being on, staying on them, reminding them that hey, you promised us this issue. We need this. Just advocate. You have to have some sort of advocate on the issues. If you don't do that and you sit back expecting that they're going to do it for you, you're not going to get far. You
Hmm.
get back to where you are. So just stay steady. Understand that we want to run our best lap, and our best lap means um, making phone calls, getting everyone to call their senators, their congressmen, organizing to get them to really pay attention, because the other side is already in their ears. The other side is lobbying. We're not, and we have to also lobby as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I've learned a lot. This is an eye opening, and we pray that that healing will really take place, because a lot of people have really been hurt and are still hurting. But then, as Kwesi said, it's a process, and we pray that this process would really, really bring a new light, to all of us. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and whilst I make my way to bed, and yes, and we will catch up soon. And God bless America.
God bless,
And
man.
God
Thank you
bless
so much.
you.
Hey, great meeting you, brother. You got like what you said. Take care, Nana.
Yeah. God bless. Happy Sunday to you all.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye. And so that was it. If you're in the States, yes, we continue to pray, and we're praying for everybody, all leaders around the world. We that are in the UK, in Africa, always remember that prayer, and after prayer, you action, get involved. I had to really learn to to see what's going on. Sometimes I know we sit back and say it doesn't concern me, but then if you don't get involved, if you don't say something, if you don't ask, and you can't just sit down and things happen. If you sit down for things to happen, then you become a victim of it. So be part of what is going on, and I know that great things will happen to all of us. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a happy, blessed week.